you going live?
Oh gosh, what's happening? All
It's
right.
recording.
Welcome, 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 everyone. Uh-oh. Can everyone hear me, see me? Hang
I
on.
can.
Hang on. Can you see me? Can you see me still?
Yes.
All
Yeah.
right. Hey now. All right, there we go. Hi everyone. It's your girl Kimberlon B under the scope. It is Saturday. I am excited. We are in the place again. It's my favorite day, time of the day, 1 p.m. Mountain Standard Time under the scope. Scopecast. What is a scopecast, you may ask? Well, that's okay. I'll let you know what a scopecast is. A scopecast is actually um a show. It's kind of in between a podcast where we have um people that can chime in and that can listen. But the good thing about this scopecast is by me going live and me doing it on Zoom, it gives people that are there in the Zoom platform an opportunity to ask questions to our fabulous speakers. So I'm so glad that you're here today under the scope. And a little bit about me. So I'm Kimberlon B. Before the show came on, I had this little rap that I was doing. I said, "Hey, I'm Kimberlon B. I'm an LPC." But anyway, I'm a licensed professional counselor in Arizona, and I work with children, adults, general mental health, anxiety, depression, substance use, you name it, I work with it because my goal is to help people reach their potential. So, under the scope, I like to give a few housekeeping rules. So, under the scope, any information on this show is for conversational, educational, and inspirational purposes, and it does not substitute anyone receiving a higher level of care, whether it's going to a therapist or seeing your doctor or seeking legal advice. Um, Also, any information on here we talk about, whether it's from our speakers or from our guests that's asking questions, this is a non judgmental time, place that we meet. You say what you want to say, how you want to say it, as long as you're not disrespectful to anyone in the group. So this is definitely a safe space. And so I am excited. I've been doing this show since August. It's been going, going, going. People have said yes. I'm excited about their yeses. Um, Also, I would like to say that this is my 11th show that I'm doing, and I'm very excited about that. And we're going into 2021, and I'm just over the top excited. So, October is a month of awareness, and I dedicated under the scope for awareness month. So last week we had the lovely Marshall Harris. She was talking about breast cancer awareness month, but I want to shift gears today and actually talk about domestic violence awareness month, because domestic violence, it actually is, I like to call it the silent killer, because it doesn't really get that much attention, and it's either people probably ignore it, or it's a touchy subject, or things have always gone that way. But I am so glad that on Under the Scope that we've decided to just debunk all of this. So in this platform today, I have the fabulous author, certified life coach, speaker, and there's something else she does. And I told everyone you'd have to be on the show to figure out what she does at her other side job. The fabulous author E.M. Power, and she is in the house. She's wrote a fabulous book called My Lion's Den, and I'm so glad that she's coming on Under the Scope today. All right, so Eva, without further ado, I've brought so much up about you. Can you introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. And first, I want to begin by thanking you, Kim. Thank you for all the work you do. Thank you for your using your platform primarily to bring uh, mental health awareness, and just, having that heart of gold to get all our messages out there. And I'm just so grateful for you and your work and for being here today. Hello, everyone. My name is author E.M. Power. E.M. is Eva Marie. Power is my pen name. I wrote um, the book My Lion's Den. What happened was, it's a story of my 9 years of my life trial of domestic abuse. The title of the book, My Lion's Den, comes from the book of Daniel in the Bible, which is a reference Lion's Den is meaning a life trial. So domestic abuse was my life trial. So that's why I put the title as My Lion's Den. And when COVID happened, I was laid off from my job. And so I used quarantine to write the book. And as an author, I know that nonfiction autobiographical books, to me, are the easiest to write because the book is really already written. The dialogue's there. There's, not much to do except to share your story. And I wanted to do that. I felt like it was going to be the easiest book to write. And so it took me 3 weeks, and I learned the process of self-publishing. So I started writing the book April 11th, and it was available on Amazon June 9th. So it was just an amazing process to learn, and I wanted to share my story. So to help whoever may be going through domestic abuse, domestic violence. And so it's an easy read. It's 8 chapters, and it starts at the beginning, which it's a relationship. Even though, please understand, domestic abuse does affect everyone, meaning all relationship types, as long as there's a relationship that's defined as domestic. So even though majority of victims are women, and it is a romantic involvement most of the time, but it does reach, every gender, every age. There's children, of course, and then there's men who suffer this abuse as well. Um, but again, uh, women being the majority of victims, and then me sharing my stories just to basically give awareness. I share in my books details of what I went through, of course, because it is autobiographical. But I also shared a lot of things that I found as a victim going through this life trial, just different aspects of abuse that even I wasn't aware of. I did find myself Googling, am I in a domestic violence relationship? You know, it's just, I was, unaware necessarily of what I was going through at the time. I just knew that it wasn't healthy. I knew that it wasn't right. I knew that it wasn't something I wanted to continue to be in or saw myself in long term. I knew that my life was in danger. Um, so I'll just start from the beginning. I was actually married for a long time. I do have adult children. Upon that divorce, I was with my first husband 18 years. I was a fish out of water. I didn't know myself. I met my first husband very young and really didn't know dating or relationships, and clearly not myself. And I didn't allow myself time to heal or to really evaluate what I wanted for the rest of my life or who I really was. And, I wasn't raised taught to um, love yourself and know yourself, like self-awareness, self-care just wasn't a dialogue at any point in my life. So here I found myself in the mid 30s and single, divorced, and just I wanted that familiarity of what I knew, how I knew how to function was as a mom and a wife. That's all I knew, and that is what I wanted because that was again familiarity, and I excelled in it, and I was comfortable. So I was seeking it, and at the time, the only thing I really required of whoever came into my life was that they feared God. I felt like that
Yes.
was it. If you feared God, what more could I want? That should like check all my other boxes, right? So I met a gentleman. I was out, and he was very attractive, very attentive. We were enjoying each other. We had a good time. Um, we had a lot in common. And of course, I walked to his car, and what do I see on the dashboard? A Bible. So he referenced God a lot, and I was just like, score. Yay, I got a God fearing man that I get along with. He clearly loved the Lord. So I ended up getting involved with him, and I started going to church with him. He was actually part of the choir. He actually wore a collar. He actually served communion. So I was just like, wow, this is amazing. Like, he's really an amazing man, on top of the fact that, he treated me well at the time. And so uh, I ended up finding myself pregnant, and got laid off from my job. So I ended up working for the church that we both belonged to. And then I had my son, and shortly after that, the abuse started. I just I ignored a lot of red flags, and I think that's so important to teach young girls, who are maybe late teens, early uh 20s, about red flags, because there's some subtle signs of just unhealthy treatment that normally you would overlook, or think you might even think it as complimentary, like, oh, where you going, or you look awfully cute in that, like, dress you down, or whatever, and you're just like, oh, how thoughtful. You don't think of it necessarily as controlling, or that there is even anything to be aware of. So there's subtle red flags. Um so yeah, and then the abuse started to escalate after my first son. And I was in shock, like, I didn't expect it. So I didn't even know how to react. I just wanted to make everything okay. And being that I was raised without a father, even with my older children, the only thing I ever really wanted for my children was to have a father in their life, or at least to know their dad, because I never knew mine. So I stayed, and dealt with a lot of abuse and mistreatment, and just like I said, all around unhealthy relationship. I think that that's another thing, is they profile you. A lot of men look for kind-hearted, good women that are naive, that they can more or less manipulate into, and then they, a lot of times I hear, they do try to get you pregnant early, because that's a form of control. When you share a child, that you're less likely to walk away, because it's harder financially, and it's harder emotionally to maintain self-sufficiency with every additional child. So it's more controlling. And then, like I said, it just escalated. And I found myself, we unfortunately, I wish I could say I was strong enough to leave with the one child. And there was a time when I did leave, because like I said, it was just, I knew it wasn't healthy. um and I left, and out of state, with my one son at the time. And I found myself missing him. And the reason why I left, surprisingly enough, wasn't necessarily for the abuse. He was actually out late, and I found him with a woman that I know he had been involved with in the past. So that's what actually forced me to leave. So anyway, we left out of state, and I found myself missing him. And then there's that love bombing that's in the cycle of abuse, the honeymoon period, where they really, you know, they know your psyche. They know what makes you tick, what makes you forgive, what makes you want to work things out. They know what to say, how to say, I'm sorry, or whatever. And so I forgave him, and I did miss him. And by this time, we were already involved over 2 years. possibly almost 3. And then I ended up having my second daughter and out of state. And then at that point, shortly after, when I was pregnant, he was never physically abusive. After having my second daughter, maybe a week later, because I remember this incident again, he was out late, wouldn't come home, and I go quizzing him about, where you been, why aren't you home yet? I'm blowing up his phone, and so when he came home that evening, I wouldn't let off. I was, like, this can't keep happening, and how come you're turning off your phone? The whole attitude. And I remember putting up my daughter in bed in the crib. That's how I know I had just had her. She might have been a couple of weeks old, and he might have, if I remember correctly, instructed me to go put her down. And I put her down. I turned around, and I just felt his fist hit my left ear and the temple of my left temple. And I remember hearing a ring in my ear, like a beep, like a long sound in my ear. And I remember stars. And I remember the words he said was, "You're not pregnant anymore." And so I know, being pregnant, I was more or less safe. But after the pregnancy, it was like, here we go again, even after the second child. So, and then it escalated to where I noticed he was using recreational drugs, leaving our residence and out, just doing him, partying, whatever. And I was home caring for our younger 2 children at this point. And being that I had no idea how recreational drugs work, how to use, I had no idea. He could have been using it longer, and I'm just not aware. I don't know the signs. I don't know what to look for. Now I do. Now I do. But I didn't then. And so um I was just surprised. Things started missing from our apartment, and I find out he admitted it, that he had pawned it, just different things like that. And so finally I knew what it was for and why he was out with whoever, spending time, just staying gone. But honestly, at this point, I was more relieved that he was gone. I would encourage him to leave, because it was just me and my children. I was fine. We would put on a movie, and by this time, my daughter was a few months old, maybe 5 months, and my son was 3. And so, yeah, I would encourage him to leave if I could. Whatever it took for him just to be gone was I was fine with. So I started to worry about him from using. So I thought, wow, what if he overdosed? And so I started putting in my mind, I'm going to try to convince him to go to his hometown, because I felt like at some point he might, and I would have to send him back to his family. So I convinced him to move back home. So we relocated across the country to where his family was. And I actually thought maybe it would stop. Maybe it would even get better, because it was around his people and his family. And maybe that would, make him want to be a better husband, a better father. No, that's not what happened. About a month or 2, maybe 6 weeks after arriving to his hometown, um, he had gained employment, and he wasn't able to go to work. He was probably partying all night. And I remember his boss had called. He told me to pick up the phone and to make up an excuse. And I'm sure whatever I said wasn't what he wanted me to say, because he started to get angry. And at this point, not only they're manipulative to you, they know how to call in sick. They know how to say what they need to say to get what they need done. So, being that I knew I had said the wrong words, I feared. I could tell, like, he was growing more and more angry as I'm talking to his voice, or to his boss. And honestly, I don't know how to lie. I don't know what to say. I'm not manipulative, you know. But I knew I was just saying the wrong things. So I got up, and he jumped, after I hung up the phone with his boss, he jumped on me, lunged on me, and started choking me. I fell back. And I remember the kids, I think it woke up the kids. So he stopped. And, of course, I'm a mess. I'm crying. And I just started to think, I can't keep doing this. If being here with his family isn't enough to stop him, and he's going to continue doing this I just have to get out of this. So I feared for my life. I didn't want to be there any longer because I knew throughout the day it will probably just continue to get worse. So I looked for the keys and where they were, and I told him I needed the bathroom, and I grabbed the keys to my vehicle and my phone, which was probably a phone we shared, but I made sure I put it on persons and acted like I needed the bathroom. But instead, I ran to my vehicle, locked myself in with my phone, and it was my first time calling 911. So I never called 911. I never thought I would ever get in a point in my life where I ever would have to, and not for my own safety. But I was very fearful. I told the operator I was shaking. My voice was trembling. I'm like, please, please send someone before he realizes I'm locked in my car. And not only locked in my car, but I'm locked in calling you. So um the operator's like, ma'am, just hold on, he's en route, they're en route. And I'm like, please hurry, please hurry. I just remember being so scared. And sure enough, the officer pulled up in a vehicle. He waved me out, and he was like, the first question was, is your husband armed, or are there any weapons, firearms in the home? And I'm like, honestly, I don't know. um and then he called for backup. The second vehicle came, and I told the officer what happened. And so they knocked on the door and ordered him to come out. He came out holding our, at the time, probably 7, 8 month old daughter. And he looked like he was in shock to see the officers, that there was nothing really going on. And it was just a misunderstanding between him and his wife, and tried to play it down like it was unnecessary for them to be there. So the officer just wanted to reiterate that I did say that he did try to choke me. And so at that point, they they arrested him and put him in the vehicle once I signed that he did in fact do that. So he went to jail that evening, and I ended up talking to his brother, and found out that he had lied about his previous incarceration, which I knew. He said he was incarcerated early 20s, another red flag. But instead of inquiring more, I just believed what he said, which I found out later was actually for doing harm to his high school sweetheart.
Wow.
But he had lied that it was actually for a guy who had owed him money. Anyway, that night I packed my stuff. I called the domestic violence hotline. There was an availability for myself, and at the time, my 7 month old and my 3 year old. And so we stayed at the shelter for 21 days. And that was my first time at a shelter. And during that time, I realized I was expecting our third child. So without resources and being in another state, just having no idea what to do, I ended up going back to have my third child. And I knew during the pregnancy I was going to be okay, and I was. Um, so yeah, I just went through that, and ended up having our third child. Um, and then of course the abuse continued until we I got approved for my own residence, so we weren't residing together anymore. He was not allowed on the property where the housing I got, because I had him listed and showed a restraining order against him to stay in the complex. So he was barred or banned from being on property. So we lived in different residences. I gained employment, and I was just going to school full time and working. And him or his mom would care for our children, but he couldn't be within 100 feet. So we would just exchange the kids with his siblings or whatever, so that I could be to work. And I mean, it was okay, because I didn't, we didn't reside. And the abuse, slowly tapered, in a sense that he was out doing his recreational things with the people. And like I said, I would encourage him, and just as long as he wasn't around me, and if I needed him to be with the kids, he was fine. He was always a loving dad to them, just very good around his children. So Um, One night, at this time, the kids were 8, 5, and 4. Um, he wanted some money, and it was midnight. He knew it was deposited into my bank, and he came to my door, and I said, just come in the morning. I'm not going to the ATM right now. I was really tired. And so he said, okay, or whatever. He left. I know he was upset, but I was like, it's okay. I'll just see you in the morning. I went back to bed. I woke up. It was like 6 a.m. on the dot at my door. And I said, okay, let me go and grab my purse and go to the ATM for you. And as I turned around, I heard the door lock, which I thought was unusual because I'm going to be turning right back out to go to the ATM for him. And then he hit me, and it had been a while since he hit me because we were in different residences. But he struck me on my left with his right fist on my left chin a few times. I felt my lip. I tasted my blood, and I could feel like my heartbeat on my lips. And of course, here came the tears, and I'm sorry. And he had mentioned something like, you should have opened the door and did this for me like at midnight when I came, and not have me to wait till like 6 in the morning. And again, I'm apologetic.
Wow.
And the kids started waking up, and then they walked to the hallway, and he met us halfway. uh he left. This was in the back door, the kitchen area, when this took place. And so the kids met us, and of course they're crying because they hear him, and I'm a mess. And he went up to them and said, tell them it's your fault. Tell them you made me do this. Tell them you should have answered the door at midnight, and that, and so I did. I do everything he said in order to prevent any more harm to me. And I said, yep, mommy should have opened the door for your dad. Mommy should have, whatever he wanted me to say. And I left, got him money, and like clockwork, as soon as I put it in his hands, he was gone. So this led to the kids. Of course, it was traumatic to them because whenever he would hit me in the past, he would remove me from their presence, whether it was outside in another room, just where the kids, he would on the TV a little louder, to prevent them from hearing anything. And so in this case, um, the kids saw it, and they were older. So they spoke about it in school because it clearly affected them that I was hurting, and visibly to them at this point. And so officer came to my home that afternoon, asked me if I wanted to press charges, and I said no. And so he said that more people would be coming to visit me. I guess CPS was involved, so I was visited by CPS. And the lady was telling me, the social worker was like, I see this all the time. I know the players of this. Unfortunately, sometimes people I have visited their home are no longer here. And I don't want that to be your situation. If you have family that are out of state, I suggest you go, because it's clearly not safe. But I'm here for the kids, on behalf of the kids. And I said okay, and she left. She gave me her card. And again, we went back to normalcy as I could think of. And then a couple of weeks had passed, and the social worker was at my door again, and I answered it. This time I was very surprised to see her because no other incidents had took place. And she came to my door and she said, I did a follow-up with your kids at school, and I interviewed them, and they said that you give food to their father, who then in turn, when you're around him, asks for money. And when you don't give him money, there's an argument. And it's true. Their father, was out there, whatever. And there are times when he would come hungry, and I would give him food. Um, and then he would ask for money, and yes, we would argue. So the social worker basically told me, if you don't keep your kids from their father, we will. And the next time I come to your home, it will be to remove your children. So I told her at that point, I said, just like you suggested the first time we talked, I have no reason to be here other than them having any kind of relationship with their father. And if that's no longer the case because I have to keep them from him, that's perfect. Listen, I'll leave. no problem. And so I gave myself 2 weeks. I gave my notice to work, a 2 week notice, and prepared financially. I sold everything in my apartment that I could, and luckily I did sell like big ticket items like my bed, washer and dryer, you know. Um, and got the monies. I made sure my vehicle was okay because I was going to be driving 1,850 miles with an 8-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 4-year-old. And so I got AAA, which takes 7 days to be enforced. Um, and packed one night. I told people on a need to know basis because it's safe planning. I didn't want it to get back to him that I was even thinking of that, or, you know. So my pastor knew, his mom and his older sister knew, because I knew they knew their brother and they knew their son, and they knew it was best for me and the children to be away from him. So I knew they weren't going to tell him, and they wanted me to give them a chance to say goodbye to the children. So I did that. In fact, they were the last two people to say. It was at midnight. I left that state. I stopped by, and they hugged my children and wished us and safe travels. And I left the keys to the unit in case he had any belongings in there, with my pastor, along with my wedding band, and a letter explaining that we left, and we safely got away.
Wow. I
Mm-hmm.
am so glad that you shared the story. Um, because this is one of the myths that's surrounding domestic violence is that, when people share their stories or survivors share their stories, the first thing that people want to say is leave. And it's not that easy to leave. And I know the average person will leave the relationship at least 7 times
Yes.
before the final time. And even you sharing your story, because I was thinking, you said when the kids were little, and then finally you left, they were 8 and 5.
8, 5, and 4. Yep.
8, 5, and 4.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not that easy at all.
No.
and
Nope.
even and even sharing that it's not only about the leaving. You had to, with the children, I need to figure it out for the children. I need to have a place to go with the children. And I know you, being a domestic violence advocate as well, know that it's hard when you have children involved. Then you have to figure out money, housing. I got to have a plan. And I'm so glad that you mentioned a safe plan, because it's
Yeah.
not that easy to just say, I'm going to leave. It's like, okay, abuser, I'm getting ready to leave you leave you, and I'm taking the kids. We'll see you later. It doesn't work that way. It's not that simple.
No.
And then
No.
trying to help them and to help them get through.
Yes. In fact, most murders take place while the or if they even threaten to leave.
Yes.
So safe planning is so huge, because even if you verbally threaten, you can't even do that and not be, because you risk your life. If they
Yes.
take that serious, you risk your life.
Yes. It's so
Yeah.
true.
So safe planning is definitely huge. In fact, on the domestic violence hotline website, there are documents of like a checkoff list if you are planning on leaving, so you don't forget anything, like important paperwork and that sort of thing. But yeah, you do have to be careful when you leave, because your life is in danger. And anybody else that's trying to help somebody out of that, there is like 41% of victims of domestic abuse aren't even the intended victim. A lot of times it's a innocent bystander who came to assist, or even the officer who
Hmm.
came to assist, that were murdered. It's
Wow.
very not safe. It's very not safe. In fact, people ask me, what do I do if I know someone that may be in an abusive relationship? I said, allow yourself to be just a good listener. At times they
Mhm.
just want to be able to talk to someone, share their story, make sure they're not crazy, like just some confirmation. But if you decide to involve yourself any more than just listening and being a friend, then please understand your life is at risk too.
Right.
Hmm.
And not to use that as a deterrent, but it's actually the truth.
Hmm.
It
Hmm.
really is. And
Yep.
so I'm glad that you said about being a listener, because another thing that can happen also, if someone's in an abusive relationship and they're talking to a friend and someone, you don't have to do that, he's such an idiot, blah blah blah, but they don't realize it's some type of connection, some type of love
Hmm.
that usually forces people or back into the relationship.
Yes, it is. It is very much like the cycle of abuse describes. It
Hmm.
is like a merry-go-round. You feel like you cannot get off. It does, start with a lot of love bombing and a lot of, just someone who basically knows you really well because they study you. They know what you like, what you don't like, how you like to be treated, and they play on you because it's not genuine. They just use knowing you against you. So once they know that and it works for them, and then it does get to where, it escalates and then it actually gets violent. Another thing I learned while actually being a resident in one of the shelters, I did stay at a shelter, two different shelters at three different times. One particular time, I read on in the hallway they had this like tack board, and I was very surprised when I read it because I had no idea. Um, it a lot of victims take their own lives as
Mm.
their way of not only taking control back, but as they're in so much despair and they don't see an out, and their only resource and their way out is to take their own life. And me fighting to live and trying to get out of the relationship safely, the last thing I ever thought was harming myself. But at the same time, when I read that, it dawned on me that I could understand the mentality behind that. It is a very, it's very difficult set of circumstances to live in, you know, being harmed, being mistreated, often. And in fact, I do recall, I believe in 2016, where I read that a married lady took her life and that her husband was charged with and found guilty of second-degree murder
Wow.
because there was such a history of his abuse that he was charged with her murder, even though she took her own life.
Wow.
But it does get to the, I know, right? Like I said, I was so surprised to read that because um I figured in this relationship and just wanting to live, you never think of it being so depressing and just really not seeing an out, and that you do want out. So that's how you go out.
Right. And along those
Yeah.
lines, this is a perfect segue. I like to ask this question, and then I really want to dig back deep into this. Everyone that comes on under the scope, we have questions coming in too, by the way. But what is your definition of mental health?
Mental health is extremely important. And why? It's because it's the mind. And in this life that we are fortunate and blessed enough to live, that's the one thing we can control. And just like all the other areas of life, me being a certified life coach, there's, to me, four big factors: faith, there's love, there's health, and then there's um, mental health. Just like your body needs to be healthy, your mind needs to be healthy. And even more so because your mind actually controls the other aspects. Without that, and that strength being the foundation, all the other ones, all the other important factors like your health, like your love life or whatever, it causes an imbalance. To me, mental health is the foundation, it's the strength. Um, and you need that more than you need the other three, because that's where you need to be most healthy to me.
Mm-hmm.
In
I
order for the all the other three areas to fall in line, that has to be worked on the most.
Yes, I really agree with that. And then going back to domestic violence, even from your story and and even what you shared about the lady that took her own life, um, what what impact do you see domestic violence on mental health? What is that impact?
Well, like I said, you know, to bring awareness is to have give people or empower people with information and just knowledge when it comes to domestic violence or any form of abuse, so that that's their first line of defense, is knowing, mentally knowing, and preparing for, different circumstances of even the fact that there are people that are predators and that they do seek people that they can abuse, that there are people out there that is an objective of theirs, instead of being naive and thinking like everybody, don't get me wrong, I believe there's more good than bad, but I mean, mental wise, you have to prepare. Hold on.
Okay. Okay.
Go ahead. My
Okay.
son, I'm at this game. Go ahead.
All right. So, well, thank you guys. I mean, even sharing your story and then sharing your books, I'm ready to open the floor. Anyone, I know we have questions in the chat. So we're getting ready to take Eva under the scope soon. Please put, if you want to ask your own questions, put your name or raise your hand. Or if you want me to ask the questions, put your questions in the chat. But so Eva, this has been interesting. Oh my gosh. Thank you for sharing your story. Um, Definitely a survivor, and I'm so glad that you are open and sharing your story with others, because your story, even listening to that, just gives people that hope that even if I didn't get out of it the first time, I still can get out of it, and I can get out of it and get back strong, get back stable. And I remember when I worked at a domestic violence shelter, they said, let's get out of the mindset of saying that they're victims, because they're survivors actually going through it. Um, so, Eva, can you tell us a little bit about your products, where we can find you on social media?
Okay, yeah. All my social media handles are under author EM Power, and you can find my book on Amazon. And that's pretty much it. My media social media handle is author EM Power.
All right. And you do your show, your monthly show.
Yes, yes, I am doing a monthly show every last Sunday. It's called DV Domestic Violence Divas, and Delta, who is a recording artist who actually has a song out called Someone's Daughter. It's domestic violence related. So yes, we do every last Sunday meet up, and basically, even though October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, we just want to continue the momentum year round, just to continue bringing awareness and making it at the forefront of people's minds. And yes, I do it because of the victims that have lost their lives because of domestic violence. That's my why.
That's your why. I
Mhm.
love that. And you're so awesome. All right, everyone. So we're getting ready to take Eva under the scope. I have questions for you already, Eva.
Okay.
The question is, have you seen your ex-husband since you have left?
I have not seen him. I think I've been uh, away 3 years now. Ironically, he actually was taken into custody a week before I started writing my book, and he just got out. So he's taken into custody April 4th, and he was released on October 4th, this month, for 6 months. And his charges were um, possession of narcotics and aggravated assault, as well as breaking his restraining order of his current love interest.
Wow.
So yeah, so he's still doing it. He's still in Louisiana. Or he's still he's still he's still doing what he's doing now with his current girlfriend.
Wow. Next
I
question
haven't talked
was,
to him since.
okay. Next question was, has your ex tried to see the kids?
No, we are 1,850 miles away, basically on the other side of the country, and he has no means to, transport himself over here. So, so yeah, no, he has no way of getting in contact with them, or
Okay.
physically.
All right. All right. Anyone else? I have a question I wanted to ask Eva, but I'll open up the floor. Anyone? Questions? Or anyone like to share a statement? All right. Hey, Joyce.
Hi, Eva.
Hey,
I just want to give you a hand clap, a pat on the back.
thank you.
I applaud you for taking in bravery to do the actions that you did to save the life of you and your children. I applaud you for that. And I know that is not an easy task. And the one thing I know, I went to a Women of Color network. I think it was in 2010, and it was in Louisiana, and they strictly do domestic violence. And I went to this convention seminar, and I learned a lot about myself as well. Because always the question, why did you stay? Why didn't you leave? Why this? Why that? I had them same questions, but I never asked. I learned at that meeting that's one question you do not ask. Because and I also learned that you can be prejudiced towards someone that's going through that. Prejudice is not, and it's a whole different thing. So I was like, is that me? Am I acting that way? So it's like I had to realize how I act around someone that said that to me, and that's like, why are you doing that? So I didn't want to be prejudiced toward that individual. So I learned a lot, and I am thankful for that. I had a lady that was there at the seminar that she had got shot 6 times. She had boys, and her husband had shot her 6 times. She wrote a book. I cannot remember the name of the book, but she survived. And it was an awe moment for me. It was just a lot of learning, a lot of ahs and stuff that I didn't know. So now, as you said, you just listen until they decide to do it. Just to let you know, there was where I work at, I had went back into the office, and this one lady was telling me, and she just came to me. I asked no question. She just told me, I'm a domestic violence survivor, and she was kind of still in it. He wasn't like locked up or anything, but she was still going through the motion. And she would come to work, and she would show me her bruises and her scars, and I just listened because because I didn't, I just listened to her, and I told her, when you're ready, you let me know. So I did tell her that when you're ready, you let me know, because I know she has to make that step. So that's what I wanted. I just wanted to applaud you for that.
Oh, thank
Thank you
you.
so much. Yes.
I
Yep.
really,
There's so many differences and why people stay. So, but yes, I mean, it varies. I know for me, I wanted my kids to have a dad.
Mhm. Do you think they can change? Do you think he may ever change? Well, so far it sounds like no, but have you ran across anyone else that said that that other individual changed at all?
I I personally haven't came across anyone that ever changed from being an abuser. Nope. And there aren't very many resources for someone who maybe wants to. But they would have to want to, and a lot of the dynamics of an abuser, especially like psychologically, they would have to admit to being wrong, and it's hard for them to even think that what they're doing is not okay.
Okay.
They really believe it's acceptable behavior.
All right. Hello.
Hello. I just wanted to say, like Choice, I applaud you for sharing your story, and it brought up a lot of different stories that I've encountered with friends or family members or even myself, because I've never been physically abused, but my first husband was verbally abusive. And so it's sort of like the same, it hurts just as much when you constantly just hearing words and, being torn down or whatever. But I had friends that were and we were like in our early 20s, and she had 2 kids, and I was like, Choice, I was like, girl, why don't you just leave? And, I was trying to help her. And when you talked about, if you try to, besides listen, if you try to step out and help someone, your life is in danger. That did almost happen to me, because I was trying so bad to help her, because we both were, had little kids, and he came home and he was ready to attack me. So, but of course my brothers weren't gonna let that happen. But it's just, it's complicated. And for you to get out and survive that and help others, that is just an awesome thing. And like I said, while I'm listening, I was just like, wow, okay, I remember this time. It just brought up so many different things. But you're a strong woman, and and showing your kids that they deserve better, you deserve better, and that's not the normal, and we don't have to accept that. And just being determined in your mind that it's something more to it than this, and we stay because we love them, and we want them to change, and we want them to be that. My one friend, she was saying, I don't want my kids to grow up without a father. And I was like, but they gonna grow up without a mama though, because he gonna kill you. And so it's complicated. And I was like 20, so I was trying not to judge her or be like that, but just be there for her. But I was young too, so it was like, and I think about her, often, because it was like the early 90s, the last time I saw her. And I wondered, did she ever leave? Is he, did he kill her? I mean, it was just that bad. And so, yeah, so thanks for sharing that story. It was really inspiring and, and just impactful. You are definitely a winning woman, that's for sure. You're
Thank you.
welcome.
All right. Anyone else?
Hey,
Hello.
I don't know if y'all can see me. I'm in the car.
We
But
can.
all right. I would like to is my mic on? Yeah. I would like to thank you as well for sharing your story. And not only is your story inspirational for women who are wearing the same shoes that you wore, but they're also inspirational for the young ladies coming up, to for them to learn early the signs of an abuser, and for them to learn early that they don't have to stay and stick around for that. So I thank you for sharing your story. So I hope it reaches a lot of young people before they can ever get to that point.
Wow. I know I was going to say, Eva, I don't know. I hope I'm not putting you on the spot, or if you can share it now or share it later. Oh, I remember when we first chatted about you coming on Under the Scope. We had talked about, or you had shared about how domestic violence isn't necessarily intimate partner violence, that it can actually be, roommates, it can actually be in-laws or other family members. And I remember you had, I think, shared what it had just happened. And I don't know if you can talk about it now.
Which one?
uh,
There's two.
no, no, you
Um,
said with your, was it a relative and the daughter?
yes. So yeah, in early March of this year, a second cousin of mine, basically her mom and my mom are first cousins who both, so her mom and my mom's uh dads are brothers. Anyway, she resides in Indiana, and it's unfortunate, but her, I want to say at the time, 25-year-old daughter was a mother of three young girls. I think at the time this happened, it was ages 5, 3, and an 11-month-old who would have been 1 in March. So her daughter, who was 25, took the life of her 11-month-old. So now my first cousin or second cousin is having to deal with the loss of her granddaughter, and then the incarceration, very likely lifetime, of her 25-year-old daughter. So I haven't talked to her since maybe end of March. She had to bury her granddaughter, who would have made 1 in March. And but I guess her daughter abused her in a sense, to the point where I don't ever remember asking the cause of death. I just know that by the time her daughter had brought her granddaughter to the hospital, she was pronounced dead. So it's believed that she had already died either a day before, or she had already been deceased before she had brought her to the hospital. So they had arrested her daughter at the hospital.
Wow. And that's and domestic violence. I just think about it because we always think intimate partner, and it can happen in any capacity.
Yes.
Anyone
Yes.
have any other questions, comments? Anyone? Well, I will third everyone else for you sharing your story. You're so awesome, Eva. I really like her. She's like a friend of mine. And thank you for sharing your story. Author of My Lion's Den. Where else can we find you? Because I do want you to share a little bit about your new venture.
Okay, so I will be writing another book. I'm hoping to finish it by June. I'll let you guys in on it since you guys are on there. It is going to be a crime mystery. I challenged myself to write a book from every genre, and after that, I know it'll be a horror. So anyway, I'm excited, and I'm going to leave romance at the end because I'm a hopeless romantic, which leads me to a business project or plan that I'm actually. It's like a science project at this point. I have some clients. I am a certified life coach, and there's a niche that I want to serve. And so right now it's kind of just like a trial and error. I'm just trying to see what the like target audience, and how I can be most helpful with regards to love. So I should be launching it. I want to say early December. I should be done figuring out how I want to present it and what exact service I want to provide as a coach with regards to that.
It's exciting. Everyone have to follow her on Facebook.
Yeah. Or Instagram.
Or Instagram.
That's
Okay.
probably better because my Facebook, I think I have a lot of friends already, but Instagram's probably best because I try to do both now. I post on both.
Okay. All right. And can you give your handle again, the name of your book, and a brief synopsis of your book?
Sure. My social media handle is always author, AUTHOR, E.M. For both IG and Facebook. I don't have a Twitter account yet. And the synopsis is basically the subtitle, which is God's presence in and deliverance of my trial with domestic abuse. So it just kind of references, even though unfortunately I have a lot of material in that book and I could have really, went deeper. When I prayed about it, the Lord said, just share references to where I was in your life. And in the end, even though domestic violence is what the story is about, or my trial with it, it is actually, in the end, to choose faith to see you through your trials.
Thank you. My
Mhm.
lions then. This
Yes.
is this has been awesome. Anyone else? If not, we're going to close it on out. Anyone? All right. Well, thank you again, Eva. Thank you for coming under the
You're
scope.
welcome.
Wait.
Eva, I want to
Oh,
know, with Breast Cancer Month and domestic violence being in the same month, and I think breast cancer, does it overshadow domestic violence a lot? Do you find that?
I think it does, and I can't say that, it isn't as equally important. However, statistically, I would argue, even though there's no cure for cancer, I just know that arguably, I believe domestic violence affects more people. I would, I would, I would bet on that.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
yeah, I think so also because it comes in what physical, verbal,
Every
emotional,
Yes. Yes.
spiritual.
gender, even cancer, it does fit. It doesn't matter any race, any gender. Um, but hopefully, at least with cancer, there's medicines and maybe treatment. I don't know, but at this point, domestic abuse, there's no cure. There's no medicine. You're at the mercy of your abuser. And in my case, I chose to have faith.
Yes.
All right.
All right.
Awesome. We'll have to have you back again once your new venture launches because I'm
Okay.
excited to talk about it.
Well, the next book is a crime mystery, so it's not mental health awareness, but I'll give you the title. It's going to be called Beyond All Recognition.
Hey.
So you guys got the title.
Yes, and we are off Facebook now, so they don't even know it. So y'all got the best
You
news
got the
ever.
scoop. Look out for
Yes.
it'll be. I'm hoping to be done by June, but it is called Beyond All Recognition.
All right, awesome. Well, we'll be here next week, everyone. So we'll have treats and no tricks. And we'll also be talking about domestic violence awareness again. So you'll have to come back to Under the Scope. And I want to thank everyone who's here today. Without you, there'll be no me. And I appreciate each and every one of you. You are all influential to me. Under the Scope, I'm Kimberlyn B. See you next week where good tea and good reads are welcome. Bye.
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 Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Are you just gonna shut it all down?
I'm shutting it down. No.
Yes. Hit it. All
All
right.
right. Bye.